Hello everyone, Ogre27 Kane here today, and I want to do a review of Final Fantasy IX for the Nintendo Switch. Let's do an overview, talk about this game for a minute. So first up, I do want to mention this is kind of a fulfilled promise. My very first video that I posted on YouTube was a promise to review this game and show some gameplay, so I'm fulfilling that. Let's talk about the game. So this is the 9th installment of Final Fantasy, and in my opinion, my humble opinion, the best one. This is the culmination of all of the best people that worked on Final Fantasy all came together and worked on this one game. This is Hironobu Sakaguchi's last game, and he had Ito and everybody else on this. This game is a masterpiece. It takes everything that made every other Final Fantasy great and combines them into this wonderful story with great music and everything else you could possibly ask for. Now, yes, I have played the original PS1 version and I played the PSN version as well, but we are going to be playing the Switch version because this one to me has become my favorite. I love all the updates and everything else, so let's start out the first category, the gameplay. Now, every Final Fantasy has a different form of gameplay. Some of them are really heavy on the story, some of them are really heavy on the combat, some of them are really heavy on the systems that they put into it, such as Final Fantasy V. This one is extremely heavy on the story, probably the most heavy. This one takes you down a very direct path and offers very little delineation. For the first half of the game, there's not a lot of exploration, but the story in this game is my favorite and is really good. So it will keep you hooked and it will keep you through all that. These are not bad things. This does see you in the same general gameplay loop that you do in most Final Fantasies, where you explore a town, get information, find a quest, go out of said town, find a dungeon or an area, explore it, defeat boss, get what you need, return to town, and move on. Still the very same simple formula, they just manage to hide and mask it in very creative ways. Every time you move from one place to another, it's because there's an important story element that pushes it rather than, I just need to go there. Now, one of those elements that pushes it is tragedy, and this game has its fair amount of it. There's a lot of death in this game. There's a lot of bad things that happen to people. As in most Final Fantasies, it's not always positive, and there's a lot of gray areas to it. So if you enjoy this style of gameplay and you love a good turn-based RPG, this is definitely one of the best ones to play. Let's touch on the story now, and the story in this game is my favorite out of all of the Final Fantasies. So this game probably has the best form of character progression I've ever played in any game. I care about every single cast member on this entire cast. Vivi has one of the most emotional, heart-wrenching stories you'll ever play. Steiner is a complete idiot who learns to correct his own ways. Dagger is a naive young princess with nothing in the world to lose except for everything. And Zidane is the most morally ambiguous and gray character you'll ever play. On top of that, you have Freya, who's the most noble character, and you have Quina, who's probably the most curious and inquisitive character. So there is a wider cast of characters that you will come across, but a lot of them are story-based, and I don't really want to discuss too much more of them, as they are further into the story and require certain plot points. The story itself in this game starts out as just a grand adventure with a lot of excitement, and you don't fully understand what's happening. You don't figure out who the good and bad and all of that stuff is until a few hours into the game. You're just trying to succeed in your mission and play along and have fun. Because of all of this, the game doesn't really see you with a huge moral dilemma right off the bat like most Final Fantasies. The game really just kind of pushes you into getting to know the characters and growing a bond and building that bond with those characters. I think that to me is one of the reasons why this is my favorite story, because this story is more about the characters than it is about the world. Even though the world is top-notch and well done, it is still that much better with the characters. I guess the last thing I want to say about the story on this is that it will keep you hooked. You give it 15-20 minutes, this game will keep you hooked from front to back. And that's one of the strongest elements to how hard this story pushes on everything it does. Let's do the next category, the combat now. So the combat in this game is probably the most traditional turn-based out of all of them. Yes, you do still see the ATB and it plays a huge part to it, but it is very much based upon the turn-based allocation. I love the fact that everything on this revolves around this turn-based mechanic because it allows you to manipulate it very much the way you could with Final Fantasy IV, Final Fantasy VI. It also allows you to build your strategies based upon this timing in this system. Another really cool mechanic to the combat in this game is, unlike other games where you build AP towards summons or junctions or other things like that, in this game, your AP goes towards the abilities that are attached to your weapons and items. This forces you to use every weapon and item in the game and to, at points, downgrade your character in order to get the ability that you want to be on them. I love this tactic because it makes me think more about what I'm doing instead of just putting the strongest gear on my character and going in and tanking a battle. Then with that, you have the nice payoff of actually learning the ability once you have all the AP. You can then equip another item or weapon and continue to learn abilities and stack them up. Then you can go in and equip them and allocate them according to the resources you have for each one. That way you can't necessarily use all abilities, but you can use a fair amount and enough to help you strategize and create different scenarios. The last thing I should mention about combat is because this game is very traditional, the combat is very difficult. Give it time. I have died a lot in this game. I cannot just go through and tank everything, so take your time and be patient with it, and it will pay off. Next category, controls and audio. So first up, we're going to start with the audio, because the audio is absolutely amazing in this game. Nobuo Uematsu did his best work, I believe, on this. Every single track in this game hits hard. And just to prove it, we're going to show off a little bit of that here in just a second. I love this song and I love this scenario, and so I hope you fall in love with it too. If you didn't turn that up, feel free to go back to that section and turn it up, because it will not disappoint you. Uematsu is an amazing musician and artist, and I love his work, and I could really feel like he knew that this game was important. That's why I think he put so much time and effort into every single track, every single audio piece. And there's a lot of nostalgia behind a lot of the tracks too. You'll find a lot of hints of some of the older games that you may have played in the series. Well, let's talk about controls for just a second. The controls in this game are very traditional. You have your button prompts and commands, item, magic, use, so on and so forth. And there's not too much deviation. It's kind of one of those if it's not broke, don't fix it systems. Yes, there are some options to go and change some sensitivity and invert a few things, but nothing you'll ever need to use. This is not a fast-paced game and it doesn't require a lot in terms of controls. So let's do graphics and animations now. So back on the PlayStation 1, this game was pretty much the pinnacle of the best graphics that system could output. This game came out after the PlayStation 2, and it kinda shows. I don't really understand why Square Enix did that. They could have easily moved it over, but I'm grateful they did because this game really was what showed us what the PS1 could do. So I believe this port was very capable and competent. I believe that they did everything they set out to do. It has a much higher resolution, it's a much more stable game, and has a really good frame rate. Being a turn-based RPG, the frame rate's not that important, so I wouldn't dwell on it too much. The only thing that I did notice in this game is that it has a tendency to crash from time to time. But they implemented a new autosave system that saved every single one of those crashes for me. So I didn't have to go back more than a minute or two. Even on some really difficult bosses, it still saved after I finished them. So I'm grateful that they did recognize that there were some minor issues and took some precautions in helping us have a stable and fun experience. One other thing I do have to mention though, is this game really highlights with its animations what they were up against back with the PS1. As you can see here, they couldn't put too many polygons on screen, and so the characters were very blocky. Now, Square Enix were a master at using this system, and as you can see, they put a lot into shadowing and color manipulation to make the screen pop and look better than it was. I believe they added in some extra polygons and some better backgrounds for this version, but this version is very akin and very reminiscent of the original. I remember being totally wowed at how beautiful this game was, way back then. The last thing I want to mention is that they do retain all of their original CGI scenes, and none of them are really up-resed, so they have that nostalgia to them that I absolutely love. So let's do the conclusion now. Well, in conclusion, I know that they're working on a remake of this game, but frankly I don't really care. I got the version that I wanted on the Nintendo Switch, and not only that, I got it physically. This means a lot to me. This game goes back and it was a huge chunk of my teenage years. I experienced 7, 8, and 9 all back to back to back, and I really didn't know what to think of each one. As I've gone back through the years and played them each one after another, I've come to realize they all have great elements to them and certain things I love. In 7, I love the character connection with Cloud. In 8, I love the connection to the world, understanding about Balam Garden. In 9, it's all about understanding the game and the characters and all their interactions and communications and their loves and hatreds and tragedies. And this game is a theatrical masterpiece. It is everything that made 1 through 8 great all before this, all rolled up into one fantastic ball. My conclusion is that this port is not perfect. Like I said, it does have some crashing issues and some other things out there. But I am beyond grateful and happy that I got this. This is the best thing I could have asked for in this sense, and I have 7, 8, and 9 all restored in this original format. 20 years from now, I can go back and look at this with the nostalgia that somebody may look at this new remake coming up. I don't really think that it's a bad thing if you hold on to these feelings or these memories, because that's kind of what makes us who we are. If you love Final Fantasy as a series the way I do, then you have to try this game, or you have to comment and tell me how much this game meant to you. Was this game something that influenced your life? Was this game that had an impact on you? Was this game something that changed your life in a way for the better? Please let me know in the comments section. Well, enough gushing from me. I hope I convinced you to try this game out, even if you just download it. It's worth it. Well, thank you for watching today's video. It was a blast to make. I upload every single Monday. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe. And have yourself a great rest of your day. This is Ogre 27 Kane, signing out.